My name is Alex, and I'm 28 years old. I've always believed in hard work, patience, and building myself up slowly. I never thought of myself as extraordinary, but I've always been determined. What I didn't know back then was that determination would eventually turn the tables on the man who once tried to crush me. This is the story of how my boss, who once called me useless in front of the entire office, ended up working for me. But before I get too far ahead, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? I love reading the comments and seeing how far our community of justice seekers reaches. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join this growing family where every story ends with betrayal being exposed and justice finally served. Now, let's go back to where it all started. My very first job after college. Fresh out of university with a degree in business administration, I was eager to prove myself. I had studied hard, worked part-time jobs to cover my tuition, and I believed I had finally earned my shot at the corporate world. When I landed a junior analyst position at a mid-sized firm, I was over the moon. On my first day, I ironed my only good suit twice, polished my shoes until they gleamed, and rehearsed what I'd say when introducing myself. I wanted to be remembered as reliable, enthusiastic, and willing to learn. The office was buzzing with phones, keyboards, and chatter. People in sleek suits moved quickly through the corridors. I felt like I had entered another universe. Then I met him. His name was Mr. Carter. He was my manager. Tall, sharp-featured, with slicked-back hair and a suit that probably cost more than my rent for 6 months. From the first moment, his handshake was limp, his eyes dismissive, and his tone carried that subtle arrogance that instantly made you feel small. "Welcome, Alex," he said flatly. "I hope you'll at least be able to keep up." It was the first red flag, but I ignored it. After all, I was new. Maybe he was just busy, or maybe he had high expectations. Over the next few weeks, I began to notice the way Carter treated people. He thrived on control, on making others feel like they were beneath him. He had a habit of pointing out mistakes loudly, so the entire floor could hear, and taking credit for ideas that weren't his. He wasn't just strict, he was humiliating. And I quickly became his favorite target. One morning, during a team meeting, he asked me to present the findings I had spent 2 weeks preparing. I was nervous but excited. I had pored over data, double-checked every number, and built slides that I thought told a clear story. I barely made it through the first 3 slides when he interrupted. "Stop. This is pathetic." He smirked, then looked around the room. "Does anyone here understand what he's trying to say? Because I don't. Honestly, Alex, you're useless." The word hit me like a slap. Useless. My face burned. I wanted to sink into the floor. Around me, a few people looked down awkwardly, others chuckled nervously. Carter thrived on the humiliation. He didn't correct me gently, he destroyed me publicly. I went home that night replaying the scene in my head over and over again. Useless. It echoed like a curse. 4 months, it continued. Every time I submitted a report, he'd find a way to belittle it. Every time I asked a question, he'd mock me for not knowing. Once, when I stayed late to fix a spreadsheet error, he told me, "If you can't even do basic math right, maybe you should consider a different career." I thought about quitting more times than I can count. But something in me, maybe stubbornness, maybe pride, kept me there. I told myself, this is temporary. I'll learn, I'll grow, and one day, I'll make him regret every word. The breaking point came during the company's quarterly review presentation. Carter had asked me to prepare the raw data and slides, but when the day came, he presented them as his own. He didn't mention me once. When someone complimented the clarity of the graphs, he smiled smugly and said, "Well, of course, it's my work." I sat there, clenching my fists under the table, knowing that if I spoke up, he'd find a way to bury me. That day, I promised myself something. I wouldn't just leave this job. I'd rise so high that one day, Carter would have no choice but to look up at me. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. A senior director from another company attended that quarterly review. Later, he pulled me aside. "You handled the data prep, didn't you?" he asked quietly. I froze. unsure if admitting it would cause trouble. But he smiled and said, "I know Carter didn't make those graphs. They're too detailed. Good work." It was the first validation I'd received in months. He handed me his card. "If you ever want to explore opportunities, give me a call." For the first time since starting that job, I felt a spark of hope. I didn't quit right away. No, I stayed. I stayed to learn everything I could, to absorb every skill, to prepare myself for the next step. Carter thought he was breaking me, but in reality, he was training me, sharpening my resolve, forcing me to grow thicker skin, and teaching me exactly what kind of leader I would never become. Every insult, every humiliation, every long night, I stored it away like fuel. A year later, when I finally resigned, Carter smirked and said, "Figures. Some people just aren't cut out for this industry." I smiled politely, but inside I was laughing. Because what he didn't know was that I had already accepted an offer at the director's company. A higher position, better pay, and most importantly, a place where my work would actually be valued. At my new company, everything changed. I had mentors who encouraged me, leaders who gave me responsibility, and colleagues who respected me. I poured myself into the work, determined to prove my worth. In 2 years, I was promoted. Then again. My projects grew bigger, my team larger, and my confidence stronger. Meanwhile, I occasionally heard whispers about Carter. His department wasn't performing well. Employee turnover was high. His management style was finally catching up to him. I didn't pay much attention, until one day, fate threw us back together. It was a warm Thursday afternoon when I walked into a major business networking event. My company had sent me as a representative. I was now managing a division of 30 people, something I couldn't have imagined back when Carter called me useless. I was shaking hands, exchanging business cards, and enjoying the energy of the room when I heard a voice behind me. It was unmistakable. That same sharp, arrogant tone. But this time, it wasn't commanding. It was desperate. I turned, and there he was. Carter. His suit wasn't as crisp, his eyes weren't as confident. He was holding a resume in his hand. And in that moment, I realized, life was about to hand me the sweetest revenge of all. When I locked eyes with Carter at that networking event, I almost didn't recognize him. The man who once strutted around the office with arrogance dripping from every word now looked smaller. His suit was wrinkled, his tie slightly crooked, and the confidence he used to weaponize against me had been replaced by something I never thought I'd see on his face: desperation. He noticed me instantly. I saw the flicker of recognition in his eyes, followed by something that almost looked like shame. But true to his nature, he tried to mask it. "Alex," he said with forced enthusiasm. "Long time no see." I smiled politely. "Mr. Carter. It has been a while." The man who once dismissed me as useless was now holding a leather folder in his hand, the kind people bring when they're job hunting. And sure enough, within minutes of small talk, he confirmed it. "Yeah, rough patch lately," he admitted with a strained chuckle. "The company downsized, and, well, you know how the industry is. Always looking for the next opportunity." He didn't know yet where I stood. And I wasn't about to reveal my hand just yet. I simply nodded, keeping my expression neutral, while inside, my heart was thundering with a mix of disbelief and satisfaction. A few weeks later, Carter's name came across my desk again. Not as a manager, not as some superior giving orders, but as an applicant. He had applied for a mid-level managerial position at my company. And because I now ran the division he applied to, his application landed directly in my review pile. I stared at his resume for a long time. The irony was delicious. The same man who once told me I wasn't cut out for this industry was now asking me for a job. I called my HR partner and confirmed the obvious. "Yes," she said, "Carter will be coming in for an interview. You'll be on the panel since it's your team." I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. This was it. My chance to show him exactly how wrong he had been. The day of the interview, I dressed sharply. I wanted him to see me not just as Alex, the timid junior analyst he once belittled, but as Alex, the leader he would now have to answer to. Carter walked into the conference room, and the look on his face when he saw me sitting at the head of the panel was priceless. His eyes widened, his mouth opened slightly, and for the first time, he didn't have a quick remark ready. "Mr. Carter," I said smoothly, "thank you for coming in today. Please, have a seat." He sat down, fumbling with his folder, clearly unsettled. I could almost hear his thoughts racing. The interview began. My colleagues asked him the standard questions about leadership, conflict resolution, and strategy. He gave decent answers, but I could see through the cracks. The arrogance he once carried had left him, replaced by insecurity he couldn't fully hide. Then it was my turn. "Mr. Carter," I said, leaning forward slightly, "tell us about a time you encouraged a struggling employee and helped them grow. How did you handle it?" His eyes flickered. He knew exactly what I was doing. His words stumbled as he tried to spin some vague story about mentoring, but I could tell even my colleagues weren't impressed. Finally, I asked the question I had been waiting years to ask. "How would you describe your management style? Would you say you motivate through support, or through criticism?" For a brief moment, his mask slipped. He looked directly at me, and I saw the recognition in his eyes. He knew I was calling back every insult, every humiliation, every useless he had ever thrown at me. He swallowed hard and said, "I've learned that support is the key. Criticism has its place, but it's more important to build people up." The irony nearly made me laugh. After the interview, my colleagues looked to me for input. Carter wasn't the worst candidate, but he wasn't the best either. I had a choice to make. Do I reject him outright and watch him squirm? Or do I bring him on board, knowing that every single day he'd have to work under me, the man he once called useless? Revenge, I realized, didn't have to be quick. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is slow, constant, and undeniable. I recommended him for the role. When Carter walked into the office on his first day, the power dynamic had flipped completely. I was his superior now, and everyone knew it. I treated him professionally, never cruelly, never arrogantly, but always firmly. When he submitted reports, I reviewed them carefully. When he asked for approvals, he had to wait until I had time. Every meeting, every interaction reminded him of one thing: he worked for me now. The man who once humiliated me in front of an office now had to address me as "Sir" in front of my team. The respect he never gave me, he now had no choice but to show. I never stooped to his level. I never called him names, never humiliated him publicly. That wasn't who I was. But my success, my position, my calm authority, that was enough. Every day he sat across from me was a reminder of how wrong he had been. Colleagues who had once watched him tear me down now saw the shift. Some even whispered about the irony, smiling knowingly when Carter had to report to me. The word "useless" never came out of his mouth again. Instead, he avoided my eyes, answered my questions quickly, and kept his head down. The arrogance was gone. Looking back, I realized something important. Carter thought he was breaking me when he called me useless. But in reality, he was shaping me. Every insult made me tougher. Every humiliation pushed me harder. He was the fire that forged my steel. And when the time came, life gave me the chance to turn the tables. I didn't need to destroy him. The simple truth, that he now worked for me, was revenge enough. So yes, my boss once called me useless. But now, he works for me. And every time I see him sitting across from me, humbled and subdued, I remember that success is the best revenge of all. To everyone listening, remember this: the people who try to tear you down today might one day be forced to look up at you. Keep pushing, keep growing, and never let their words define you. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe for more tales of betrayal and justice served. Because here, no act of cruelty goes unanswered, and karma always has the last word.